Hey everyone, I'm working to hit 1,000 subscribers and I need your help to get there. If you enjoy this content, please hit that subscribe button right now.
What's up, everyone? So there's a major issue brewing with the Toronto Blue Jays roster right now that, frankly, nobody's talking about enough. This is a legitimate problem that could derail the entire season if it's not addressed, and yet it seems like everyone's just ignoring it. Before we jump in, make sure you drop a like on this video and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's talk about the bullpen. Now look, I actually like some of the moves they've made. Tyler Rogers is a solid addition, and even though Hoffman was shaky, I'm cautiously optimistic, but that's not what we're here to discuss. When you look at the projected bullpen depth chart and see that throwing hand column, notice anything? It's almost entirely righties with barely any lefties in sight. That's the problem nobody's addressing. We desperately need more left-handed arms in that bullpen. Brandon Little was our primary lefty last year, and while we saw some flashes from Mason Fluhardy and Eric Lowour, John Schneider's go-to guy was Brandon Little. Here's what people forget. Brandon Little was absolutely dominant in the first half of the season, but then everything fell apart. First half, he posted a 2.03 ERA. Second half, a brutal 4.88 ERA. That's not just a slump, that's a complete collapse. Here's why this happened. In the first half, Little pitched 45 games and logged 44 1/3 innings. That's an insane workload for a relief pitcher. Brandon Little was pitching almost every other day. When you have one guy who's your primary weapon against lefties and you're running him out there constantly, two things happen. First, he gets worn down physically. Second, opposing teams get extensive scouting reports on him. They figure out his patterns, they lay off certain pitches, they work counts, and suddenly he's not nearly as effective. The result? Brandon Little completely lost his effectiveness in the second half, and we didn't have a reliable lefty to turn to in high-leverage situations. The Blue Jays need to address this immediately by adding more left-handed depth to that bullpen. There needs to be a shared workload here. Whenever there was a lefty matchup that mattered, Brandon Little was always the guy. You can't just ride one arm into the ground like that. Along with the fatigue factor, it became painfully obvious that teams completely figured him out. They stopped swinging, forced him to throw strikes, and drew walks. Little's going to need a completely new approach this season because the league has his number. I'm honestly not convinced he can be the number one lefty option anymore. I'm hoping Eric Lowour can shoulder some of that workload. He's not projected to be in the starting rotation right now with 6 guys ahead of him. So if he's not starting, you absolutely have to utilize him heavily as one of those fireman lefty options out of the bullpen. Last year was weird because he bounced between starting and relieving, but when he did pitch out of the bullpen, he was legitimately excellent. He posted a 1.76 ERA over 30-plus innings as a reliever. That's outstanding. You need to take pressure off Brandon Little, and Lowour is the most obvious candidate. Here's another related issue. Look at that starting rotation. Not a single lefty among the projected starters. All 6 guys are righties. If you want to give opposing lineups different looks and keep them off balance, you need to integrate Eric Lowour in some capacity. Honestly, I don't know if 2 lefties total between the bullpen and rotation is going to cut it. When you're playing 162 games and facing some of the best lineups in baseball that have significant righty-lefty platoon splits, you need more options. Eric Lowour is definitely part of the solution and has a huge role to play, but he might not be enough as the season progresses. The Tyler Rogers signing is smart from a strategic standpoint. Even though he's a righty, he throws submarine style with a completely different arm slot and release point. That gives hitters a different look. But you still need actual left-on-left matchups, especially in high-leverage situations. So who are the internal options? Mason Fluhardy showed some real flashes last year with genuinely great moments. I remember back in August against the Dodgers when he came in with the bases loaded and struck out Shohei Ohtani and got Mookie Betts to ground out. That's a massive moment for a rookie. But there were also struggles. It was his first year adjusting to the big leagues. With another year of experience, maybe we see significant improvement. I'm actually surprised he's not on the opening day roster right now. Fluhardy pitched 52 2/3 innings last year. I think he'll be back sooner rather than later. Another guy to watch is Adam Macko, who we acquired in the Teoscar Hernandez trade with Seattle. Macko's been in the system for a while now, but the development has been slow. He's still sporting a high 4-something ERA in AAA, and he's bounced between starting and relieving. If they commit him fully to a bullpen role and he starts showing success, maybe it's time to give him a shot. I'm not holding my breath, though. That 1.4 whip he posted last year in AAA is concerning. The command clearly isn't there. If one of our bigger concerns with Brandon Little is command and walks, Mako seems like more of the same problem. The last guy I want to mention is Ricky Tiedemann, and this is someone a lot of people are watching closely this spring training. He's coming off Tommy John surgery, but before that, he was the top prospect in the entire system. Now that he's returning, it'll be fascinating to see what role they envision for him. My main question is whether they develop him as a starter or fast-track him to the bullpen where we desperately need help. We already highlighted that there isn't a single left-handed starter in the rotation either, so you could make the argument that they've been grooming Tiedemann as the long-term solution to that problem. That's why I'm hesitant to assume they'll automatically convert him to a bullpen arm. That said, this is supposed to be the World Series window right now. If Tiedemann is dealing in the minors and the bullpen is struggling, you have to bring him up and use him where he helps you win games. Here's what makes Tiedemann different from guys like Fluhardy and Little. Those guys are crafty, lower to mid-90s pitchers. Tiedemann can touch upper 90s and even hit triple digits. That's a weapon we don't currently have from the left side. Bottom line, Brandon Little and Eric Lowour alone are not going to cut it for the entire season as the only two lefties on this roster. This will be a fluid situation throughout the year. Fluhardy will definitely be part of it. Tiedemann could be part of it. Tiedemann could be part of it. But I'm also fully expecting them to address this area through trade, because this issue has to be rectified before it costs them games. We cannot have another Brandon Little situation where we burn out one arm and have no backup plan. Everyone loves to blame Little for underperforming. And yes, he's the one throwing the ball, but you've got to manage the situation better. Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and let's hope the front office has a real plan to solve this.